It's March 14th, 2026, day 15 of Operation Epic Fury, and U.S. forces just executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in Middle East history. Over 90 military targets on Kharg Island, Iran's crown oil jewel export hub, just got hit with precision weapons. It got smoked in the last 12 hours. We're talking naval mine storage facilities, missile bunkers, command centers, all obliterated. But at this point, the actual oil infrastructure hasn't been hit yet. President Trump hit Truth Social confirming that every military asset there totally obliterated, while the actual oil terminals stayed untouched. For now. This raid is a direct gut punch to Iran's ability to keep the Straits of Hormuz choked, even after the U.S. has destroyed 90% plus of their navy, including 60 ships, 30 mine-laying ships, and slashed their missile and drone launches by about 95%. But Iran still has a few asymmetric plays, and they're still laying some mines, harassing tankers, and basically launching sporadic barrages of drones to maintain a soft blockade and closure of the Straits of Hormuz, where most commercial vessels just don't want to risk it. They just want to sip their coffee and transit their $1 billion of oil to where it needs to go. They don't want to deal with Shahed drones from Iran, or even the UUVs that Iran is said to be sending into the Straits of Hormuz as well. These strikes on cars are all about degrading Iranian logistics so the U.S. can force the Straits of Hormuz open and end any economic leverage that Iran has. Stay locked into the end of this video because we're breaking down why this is a massive win for the U.S. and how this could lead to the full opening of the Straits of Hormuz here in the next few days or weeks. And we'll talk about how Iran is still hanging on. How are they still hanging on? 15,000 plus targets hit. So we'll talk about how they're still hanging on and likely what comes next. But here's a release from the IDF on X, the Israeli Defense Forces, and I think you guys should know about it. They said, "We've entered a perhaps unheroic and monotonic stage of systematic destruction of command and control headquarters, military industry, nuclear infrastructure. The Iranians have over 10,000 dead and wounded among their security forces. What is likely to follow after the war is a weakened regime, an economic blockade, diplomatic isolation, and eventually a revolution. The situation matches what we anticipated." So very interesting there to see plausibly how this could actually play out. Also, some breaking news. The U.S. is sending 2,200 Marines and sailors of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit from Indo-PACOM to the Middle East. The 31st MEU Marine Expeditionary Unit, for you acronym lovers, is based around the USS Tripoli LHA-7 and its air wing of Ospreys and F-35s. So when you have naval F-35s, Air Force F-35s in the region, what's better than that? Bring in those short field takeoff and vertical landing F-35s. First of all, just because those look awesome and the combat capability of them is exceptional. So now 3 different variants of F-35s are going to be in the Middle East. And then here's some more airstrikes on the Iranian Air Force, striking down the Air Force. Literally no remnants. Su-22 is going down. Su-24 is going down. Bunkers are not protecting these different fighters from Iran. They are being struck extremely hard. But Iran isn't a slouch. Obviously, they're still using that asymmetric warfare to try to cause chaos in the Middle East, specifically with the Gulf states. So it looks like they just struck a port in the UAE with one of their one-way attack drones. And they're warning that oil and energy infrastructure belonging to firms that cooperate with the U.S. will be turned into a pile of ash, is the rhetoric that they're saying right now. So they do have still some ability for these asymmetric plays, even though their missile launches and their drone attacks have decreased by over 90%. Iran's going to double down. They're going to try to use this asymmetric warfare until the very last second. And then, unfortunately, the U.S. embassy in Baghdad looks to have been hit by Iran as well. And Iran is just trying to up their attacks on anybody who's coordinating with the United States. Their goal is to pressure Gulf nations and what they think will happen is that eventually the Gulf nations will kick out the United States. Yeah, I'm sure they would kick out the United States and just depend on Iran. They'd be like, oh, Iran, yeah, you guys that flew dozens of one-way attack drones into our neighborhoods, let's just hang out with you now. Let's just align with you. I'm sure there won't be any downside to that. And obviously the oil markets and the soft closure of the Straits of Hormuz until the Iranian regime and their asymmetric tactics are rooted out, who knows, few days, few weeks. But at this point, President Trump has opened up some strategic reserves to keep oil flowing and keep the world's economy going. And one of those things that President Trump did was open up drilling along the coast of California to help ease the burden as the Iranian situation is dealt with. But here's an interesting response from the California government that I thought was very interesting. Governor Newsom condemns and vows to fight Trump for exploiting Iran war crisis of his own making to harm California's coastline. And then it goes on. It says, what you need to know, facing an oil and gas price crisis of his own making. Well, actually, it was the making of an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that had 2,500 ballistic missiles and wanted a nuclear weapon and wanted to wipe the U.S., California as a part of that, by the way, and Israel off the face of the earth. But yeah, besides that, yeah, it was President Trump's own making. President Trump is illegally invoking emergency powers to attempt to force a restart of the Sable offshore core pipeline. Well, actually, it is basically an emergency since the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has closed the Straits of Hormuz, and I know that's really far away from California, so it's hard to understand the impacts, but it actually is an emergency, and in cases like this is what the president is supposed to do. The ball's on the California government. They said a law-breaking operation shut down in 2015 after spilling oil across California's beaches and killing thousands of birds and marine mammals. Well, yeah, obviously, if there's some sort of an oil leak, that's terrible. That should be fixed. So instead of just shutting it down completely, why don't we fix the problem? Bring in American firms that have ingenuity, advanced engineers, and make the pipeline incredibly resilient and strong so leaks don't happen instead of just completely shutting it down altogether. It's like a kid who has one fall on his bike and is like, I'm throwing this bike away. There's no way I'm riding this thing again. It just crashes every single time. But Iran's rhetoric is still full throttle despite taking a pounding with 15,000 targets being hit. I mean, it's pretty much all they have, right? But their new supreme leader, Majabta Khamenei, in his first public statement, you didn't actually see him, but it was read on state TV. No video evidence of him right now. He vowed to keep the Straits of Hormuz blocked as a pressure tool, demanded reparations, and promised revenge for the martyrs of the IRGC. The IRGC is threatening to turn U.S.-tied oil infrastructure into a pile of ash across the entire Gulf if the U.S. pushes harder. They're firing missile waves at Israel. Obviously, that's what they're going to do. They're hitting Gulf states like Oman with one-way attack drones, and they're claiming that they've struck pretty much all of the U.S. bases at this point. And CENTCOM actually debunked more of their lies, which is awesome. CENTCOM said the IRGC is again claiming they've rendered the USS Abraham Lincoln inoperable. This is after they've previously claimed to have destroyed it multiple times. And then they go on. The IRGC is not only peddling recycled lies, but they are contradicting these lies with more lies. To be clear, the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group continues to dominate Iranian airspace from the sea. And this is straight up awesome. It shows B-2s taking off from an undisclosed location to strike Iranian targets, specifically focused on delivering long-range fire to not only eliminate the threat from the Iranian regime today, but eliminate their ability to rebuild in the future. So likely targeting ballistic missile facilities, drone-making facilities, their different production arm, petroleum, oil, and lubricants potentially that actually help them make those one-way attack drones and ballistic missiles. The B-2s are obviously doing some work, likely 2,000-pound bombs. At this point, they can drop the MOP, the 30,000-pound bomb, all the way to 2,000-pounders. The versatility of the B-2 is insane, but it's really cool seeing that video there. And then this is the actual strikes of Kharg. You can see the military hardware getting hit. You can see the different locations on the island getting struck, basically taking down anything that they might have to protect their oil infrastructure. The runway there looks like it's being struck as well, basically gutting, putting massive craters and holes in the runway. So Kharg is getting they're getting a pounding at this point, and it's not the kind of pounding that they like. But CENTCOM said last night U.S. forces executed a large-scale precision strike of Kharg Island. The strike destroyed naval mine storage facilities, missile storage bunkers, and multiple other military sites. U.S. forces successfully struck more than 90 Iranian military targets on Kharg Island while preserving the oil infrastructure. For now. So Iran's rhetoric and responses are ramping up, despite them taking a pounding that we have never seen before. Multiple missile barrages, though, is their focus. They're trying to launch those at Israel, cause damage, kill people, and then they're doing these one-off or these pop-shot drone strikes and these missile strikes, and even a missile breaching Turkish airspace again before another intercept just recently. Their rhetoric is off the charts defiant. Their new Ayatollah, not so supreme Ayatollah, is vowing no escalation restraint, and IRGC is launching what they are calling True Promise 4, their operations against Israel and the U.S., while warning that all of the U.S. assets will become ash. And then the IRGC actually threatened President Trump directly, telling President Trump, be careful not to get eliminated yourself. So as you can see, these guys are the trash talkers of trash talkers. But we're seeing some anti-regime protests starting to bubble up, not on the massive level that we'll likely see once the administration gives the thumbs up to the free people of Iran, but it's almost like this anti-regime protest, we're just seeing the beginning of it as well. The regime is also trying to counter those protests with their own pro-regime protests, obviously. I mean, that's what they're going to do. So CENTCOM described this operation on Kharg as a large-scale precision operation, electronic warfare jamming any of the surviving radars, and not just Kharg itself, but still more strikes, massive amounts of strikes on the mainland of Iran. Layered ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Your daily dose of acronyms, I got you. Drones, satellites, recon aircraft for still pinpoint targeting and detection of what's going on in Iran. These types of tactics, this layered approach, it lets the U.S. dictate the fight, hit hard, hit clean, preserve what you want. We'll preserve the oil infrastructure for now, but strike down all the ability of Iran to execute any attacks in the Straits of Hormuz. That looks to be the goal at this point. And with those Marines surging in, don't sleep on those 2,500 plus Marines coming in with F-35s and amphibious assets. Those are the guys that she told you not to worry about, right? They're ready for whatever phase comes next. Does this phase include some limited ground operations? That's always a possibility at this point. For the next phase would be strikes with surgical precision, with special operators going in, surgical scalpels, taking down high-value targets. The goal, hopefully, is to only maintain that surgical scalpel and not have a massive ground force going in. Seeing that happen in the global war on terror, that's where I deployed into combat. Watching a massive invasion force without clear objectives was just not the strategy, and it looks like this administration is focused on that, with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying that a ground invasion, a massive ground invasion, will be avoided at all costs. But the U.S. being ready for whatever comes next, whatever phase comes next, this is why no adversary can match U.S. combined joint operations with the Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, even the Coast Guard probably getting in on the action, and obviously the Space Force. Don't worry, Space Force, I got you.
I know, bored. Sorry, hungry. Horny, bad. Space Force, good.
Let's move to the 4D chess strategic analysis section. So strategically, this is a very sharp move. By targeting only the military side of Kharg, the U.S. is crippling Iran's mine-laying missile support without immediately cratering global oil supplies and making that situation worse. The Trump administration is holding the oil terminal card as leverage, setting conditions to run naval escorts through the straits once these threats drop to a level that's acceptable. But the first priority is erasing offensive capabilities and erasing the ability of Iran to mine any of the Straits of Hormuz or the Persian Gulf at this point, and being able to target in their UUVs, because those things are slimy, they're slippery, they could be everywhere. So bringing in new advanced US systems from companies like Anduril that can sniff those things out. The lamprey from Lockheed Martin, you've heard me talk about it before, but I can't state it enough. An AI swarm, an AI underwater swarm of those lampreys, that's better than sharks with freaking laser beams, guys. Having those things talking to each other, creating a metal net under the sea to detect mines, detect the UAVs and just evaporate them at a moment's notice, that might be one of the main things that helps keep the Straits of Hormuz open. This sustained degradation of the military forces of Iran, it turns the pressure directly back to the regime, where they have less and less options every single day. And then seeing those anti-regime protests starting to bubble, this weakens the leadership while hopefully protecting the free people of Iran. And from what we saw from the IDF, looks like it could be a few more weeks until a full-on revolution could take place. So there you go, guys. Day 15, Operation Epic Fury. The US just delivered that devastating precision blow to Kharg Island's military backbone. Over 90 targets on that island gone, directly aimed at breaking Iran's grip on the Straits of Hormuz and the world's oil supply. We're degrading them relentlessly, setting up to hopefully here soon reopen global shipping with full flow through the Straits of Hormuz, while Iran still clings to their mines and their threats despite massive losses. They're basically like that dog in that meme that's just sitting there while the house is on fire, and they're like, everything is fine, everything is fine. But American resolve, air power, technological superiority are on full display here, proving again why the US military is unmatched. What do you think? Does the regime hold for the next few weeks, or do they crumble into a revolution sooner than we thought? Drop your predictions and comments below. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Go and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. And then go and click the link in the description. Become a member of the Max Ready Room. I'm doing lives pretty much every day at this point, and I do priority responses to the channel members. And also, as a channel member, you get access to all the different members only videos. And then go ahead and watch this next video that pops up right here. I'll see you on that video. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.